and we begin with the Gemara's questioning of the limud that we had yesterday. The Gemara had said that there are two psukim in the Torah. The Torah, in regards to the bull, says that you will spritz it upward and then you will spritz it downward 7 times. And in regards to the goat, it said you will spritz it upward once, or you will spritz it upward, which means it once, and then you will spritz it downward. And we compared the two, and we said that there was a hekesh. So when inside the holy bowl is the Kodesh HaKodashim, spritz it up once, and you know that it's once, even though it didn't say once, because by the goat it says once, and you spritz it downward 7 times as it says, the bull. And then you're going to take the goat, also go in, spritz up onwards as it said, and downward 7 times because it's compared to the bull. That's considered a hekesh, a comparison, a textual comparison, and we learn one from the other. Then we saw at the end of yesterday's daf that it would come out from the Kodesh HaKodashim and go back and again do the spritzing of 1 up and 7 down, and 1 up and 7 down, first of the bull blood and then of the goat blood, facing the paroches, the curtain on the outside, facing the area that of the curtain of where the ark, the aron was. And how do we know that? Because the Torah says that he will go out, and so shall he do as well for the Mishkan, for the Beis Hamikdash. And so he shall do for the Olam. Now, the problem is that we have a general rule that says, ein hekesh chozer umakesh, right? That if you, something that you learned by a hekesh, that you only know the halacha based on a textual comparison, a hekesh, that you can't then further learn it from a hekesh as well. So essentially over here, this seems like a hekesh that's chozer Melamed behekesh, that you're learning a hekesh from a hekesh, because it's saying textually it says you'll do outside like you did inside in the Kodesh HaKodashim, and inside you only know what to do because you're comparing the bull to the goat and the goat to the bull, and that's how you know by the goat to spritz 7 down because it's compared to the bull, and you know to spritz 1 up by the bull because it's compared to the goat, and you can't then further go ahead and learn it by a textual comparison to the outer chamber as well. So this is the question of the Gemara. We're on the 4th line of Nun Zayin Amid Aleph 57b, the 4th line. 57a, the 4th line. Can you have something that we learn by a hekesh, meaning spritzing 7 down by the goat and 1 up by the bull? Can that further go ahead and teach behekesh through a hekesh? Can you have that teach us that in the outer chamber, in the Beis Hamikdash proper, the Kodesh, that you would spritz it 1 up and 7 down again towards the curtain, and 1 up and 7 down towards the curtain of the goat as well? How can you learn that? So the Gemara says, actually, this is not really a proper hekesh. The first one, it says explicitly by the bull that you're going to spritz upward, and it says that you're going to spritz downward 7 times. All we're learning from the goat is that the amount of times you're spritzing upward is 1. And it also said explicitly that you're going to spritz once upwards by the goat, and that you're going to spritz downward. And we're just learning from the number. So actually, the first answer to the Gemara is, it's not really a hekesh. The Torah explicitly said by each one, you spritz up, you spritz down. And by each one, it gave a number on one of the parts. So you simply, one aspect is what you're comparing to the other and saying, just like over there, the spritz down, which the Torah says, by both there's a spritz down. Just like over there it's 7 times, here too it's 7 times. And the same in the spritz up. The Torah says by both that you're spritzing up. And the Torah says by one that you're going to spritz upward once. So it's the comparison is only there to tell you how many times you're going to spritz up by the bull. So that doesn't count as a proper hekesh, and you can then further learn it for the outside because it's a menu v'davar. It's from itself. In itself, the Torah already says to do this. It's simply you just need something else to finalize the detail. That in and of itself doesn't count as a hekesh. That's the first opinion. Not everybody agrees. Some say that even that counts as a hekesh that cannot teach further. So we're going to have a different answer. So that's it. But the first step is that here it's not a proper hekesh on account of that the text itself says what to do. Spritz up, spritz down. And it gives you a number by one of them. And the other one that doesn't have the number, we're comparing. So Gemara says, Hanicha, fine. That would be fine. Laman da'amar le'have hekesh. According to the opinion that says that this doesn't count as a hekesh on account of that the Torah already says what to do by itself. You don't need the hekesh, the contextual comparison for what to do, only for something specific about it. Elo lamanda amar have a hekesh, but according to the opinion, it says that too counts as a hekesh, and you cannot use it as a contextual comparison for anything else. Michael, so what are you going to say? So when it says, we have another answer. You know what? Here, in not learning what to do, it's about another place. We're just learning the places. It's you're not learning the hekesh from the hekesh. Because the first hekesh taught you what to do by each of the bulls, by each of the animals. It tells you what to do by the bull and what to do by the goat. So there, you're comparing animals to each other. Here, you're not comparing the animals, another animal to those animals. That would be a hekesh that's learning from a hekesh. Here, the second teaching is something else. You're comparing the place, the outside chamber, to the inside, the innermost chamber, the Kodesh HaKadoshim. That there was no hekesh about at all. That nothing was compared to the inner chamber, or the inner chamber wasn't learned from anything else. So it's two separate comparisons. We're learning the bull from the goat and the goat from the bull. And then we're learning a chamber from the chamber, the outer chamber from the inner chamber, the Kodesh from the Kodesh HaKadoshim. That is not something we already learned about. We didn't learn anything about that. And so we're here where the Torah says, and so shall you do for the Oil Moed, for the intent and meaning. That's learning about a space, not about the animal. So it's two different hekesh. It's two different comparisons. Or perhaps a third reason why this is not a comparison, a textual comparison, a hekesh from a hekesh. That the inner, learning what to do in the outer chamber and what to do in the inner chamber really learned together at one time. In other words, you're not comparing the outer from the inner. That we're saying, look, I learned the outer chamber from what was done in the inner chamber. In the inner chamber, I also only know from learning one to the other. No, the outer chamber and inner chamber is one mitzvah. And we're learning, when we learn the bull from the goat and the goat from the bull, it's about all the spritzes that are going to be going on. And so you're not learning what a separate hekesh. Tana, now that we know that you can learn that we spritz outside the Kodesh HaKadoshim, facing the curtain also, once up and seven down, once up and seven down for the bull first and then the goat. The Tana Kashu Maze Eina Maze Ala Parvayis. When he spritzes, he doesn't actually spritz on the curtain itself, Ela Keneged HaParachas, or rather facing the parachas towards it. So just like we said in regards to the ark, to the Aron, that it doesn't spritz on the kaporas, on the Aron itself, but rather towards it on the ground. So to over here, it's towards it, but not on it directly. Amar Rabbi Lazar, Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Elazar Rabbi Yossi said, and this is the Gemara in Me'ila says Elazar Rabbi Yossi healed one of Caesar's daughter from an illness, and there was a reward, and they allowed him to go in and see the treasures in Rome, and in there were artifacts that were taken from the Beis Hamikdash. They saw the grinding stone of Beis Haftinas, which would grind the spices, and they saw the table, the shulchan that the showbread was on, and they saw the menorah, the golden menorah that was there, and the tzitz, the golden plate that the Kohen Gadol wore, and also he saw the paraches, the curtain from the second Beis Hamikdash, or perhaps even the first Beis Hamikdash. He saw the curtains that were there, that were between the Kodesh and the Kodesh Kadashim. So when Rabbi Elazar Rabbi Yossi came back, he said, "Anira isi b'Romi." I was in Rome and I saw and I saw on it blood stains, droplets from the bull and the goat of Yom Kippur. How do you know it was the bull and goat of Yom Kippur? Maybe it was from something else that got spritzed on the parachas. What else gets spritzed on the parachas? The bull of an atonement for a Kohen Gadol that made a mistake, a halachic mistake, ruling mistake. So Gemara said, it's a mistake that the beis din did, or the goat of a dezara, of a communal sin of a dezara. So the Gemara says, no, it can't be. The chazad of the kasir. We saw that they were in a row. So we saw this earlier, that for the 1 and 7 of Yom Kippur, he would do like a matzlif. So it's like someone had a hammer blow, so he would spritz lower, spritz them in a row, one a little bit closer to the next, than the next. And so he knew that these droplets, looking like nails in a neat row, and they were 7 of them or 8 of them. So he knew that was the Yom Kippur thing. So he said he saw it. But and similarly, he said the other way around. We have a Mishnah that says by the communal bull for a communal sin. Similar to this, it says over there also that when you would spritz of the bull towards the curtain, it wouldn't go on the curtain. But if it touched the curtain, it doesn't invalidate it. You're just supposed to spritz it towards the curtain. If it went on the curtain, that's fine. And then that also, Rabbi Elazar Rabbi Yossi commented, I saw it in Rome. I saw this curtain. And I had many droplets, or several droplets of blood from the communal sin offerings. I'm going to say, how do you know there was communal sin offerings? Maybe it was from the Yom Kippur spritz. Because they were not in order, they were just general spritzes. So I saw that it was on the curtain as a general spritz and not as the Yom Kippur service. So we have a text whether he saw multiple spritzes on it, both the Yom Kippur spritz and the non-Yom Kippur spritz on it, and so he said, "Look, I saw that it did have the blood stain on it," or there were different curtains that he saw. There's an indication that as Shutdown points out, that he would have seen the first Beis Hamikdash's curtains, and as Steve asked last time, but there was no curtain by the first Beis Hamikdash. It was for the doorway itself. It was a big wall that had doors, but in the doorway were curtains. Either way, he was in Rome. He was allowed in to see the treasures that they had taken from the various places, including the treasures of the Beis Hamikdash, and and saw the curtain, and on it the blood stains. So essentially, even though that it doesn't have to hit, he's meant to spritz it towards, but not on the curtain. Sometimes it would hit the curtain, and that would be. I think Gemara is going to go into a series of mistakes that would have happened, and what is valid and what is invalid. The order in the Torah, and we saw this before, that the avodah of Yom Kippur has to be done. It has to be done in order. The order is that you first have to do the par, the bull, and then you have to do the goat. The first step, doing the bull. So we saw first it's the vidui, the statement of sin on the bull. Then separate the goats with the lottery, and then go back and do the vidui again and shech the bull, and then bring it into the Kodesh HaKadoshim and spritz it. Then you go out. Then he would go out and shech the goat and bring in the blood and spritz it. And then he would go out into the Beis Hamikdash, into the outer chamber, spritz the bull blood, and then he would go over and he would have to spritz the goat blood. Now, what happens if the goat blood and bull blood got mixed up? And there are various ways of that happening, where they actually got mixed into one, where he doesn't know which is which. So what happens in those cases? The bloods actually got mixed up. So so Rava says, so Rava suggested perhaps he could just spritz one upward and 7 downward, and the one up will count for the goat and the bull, because you have to do the bull and you have to do the goat both upwards. And so he did it, and then the 7 down. Now the problem the Gemara is going to say is that wait, but then it's out of order, because he spritzed the goat blood upward prior to spritzing the bull blood downward. And that's out of order. Amar Rabbi Yirmiyah. So Rabbi Yirmiyah challenged this. Amru Kamadir Rabbi Yirmiyah. They taught Rava's teaching in front of Rabbi Yirmiyah. And Rava was in Bavel, and Rabbi Yirmiyah was in Eretz Yisrael. Amar, so he responded and said, Bavloi tipshay the mishum the dari bara the chashecha amrishmaita the mechashra. The Babylonians are being foolish here because they live in a land that's dark. They're saying a teaching that's not light, that's not illuminating. The power cannot be valid because he's spritzing upward, the goat's blood upward prior to spritzing the bull blood downward. And the Torah said clearly, you have to, and he will complete the atoning or the spritzing of the kodesh of the holy. So he has to do each step completely prior to doing the next step. Kalei damapar, complete the avodah, the service with the bull before v'achakach kalei damasar, and then do the goat. You can't mix them up and do them simultaneously because you're going to end up doing part of the goat prior to completing the bull. And the Torah said v'chila, you have to complete. So that doesn't work. So you can't spritz the one up on behalf of both the goat and the bull, because then you end up doing the goat prior to doing the second part of the bull, the downward spritz of the bull. Elam Rabbi Yirmiyah. Rather, Rabbi Yirmiyah says the correct way to do this, if we get the bloods get mixed into each other, he spritzes upward once on behalf of the bull and said, "This is the bull blood." And 7 downward, l'shem par, and it says for the bull. And then he spritzes from that same mixture upward, once again, for the goat, and 7 downwards, l'shem masoyer, on behalf of the goat. So Rabbi Yirmiyah says that you have to redo it a second time for the goat itself. Okay, and that is Allah, and that is accepted. Now the Gemara goes on. What happens is said he had the bull blood, and he spritzed upward, and as he's doing that, he's holding the goat blood, the bull blood, and it spills into the goat blood, right? And now you have a mixture of goat and bull blood. He already did one spritz upward, but he didn't do the downward spritzes of the bull, and not the one up of the goat or down. So Rav Papa thought perhaps he has a solution for this. Savar Rav Papa kamei the Rava l'meimar. So Rav Papa suggested in front of Rava to say noisin shevel amata l'shem par. Complete the 7 downward for the bull. Well, l'shem sar, and include in that it's done for the goat as well. And then you just spritz one upward for the goat, l'shem sar. And why did he think that? Because in any case, the bull upward was done. So when I do the 7 downward, I'm doing the bull downward. That's completing the bull. And I can also do it for the goat because it's not prior to the bull. It's simultaneously to the bull. And then I do the one up. Amali Rava. Rava said, uh-oh. Now they're going to make even more fun of us. Right? Ad hashta karulon tipshai. Till now they said we're being foolish. Hashta tipshai the tipshai. Then they're going to say we're the fools. Like, we're even more foolish. Why? They're coming out and megamrina luhu because they're trying to teach us like a miri, and we're not learning. They're telling us you have to do it in order, and we're not learning because we're making the same mistake again. Because you're doing it out of order again. You're doing the downward spritzes of the goat prior to the upward spritzes of the goat. And the Torah said, spritz upward and spritz downward. And so you see the upward has to come before the downward. And so we already learned this concept that it has to be done correctly. Why would we not learn it and understand that it has to be everywhere done correctly? Torah says do it upward and downward, so we know that it has to be done in order proper. So don't do that. Ella, rather, and now we go to Nun Zayin at base 57b. Ella Marava, rather Rava said, Noisein Sheva Lamata L'Shem Par, so what he's going to do is he's going to do from this mixture of bull and goat blood, he's going to spritz 7 times downward to fulfill the mitzvah of the bull. Then he's going to spritz upward 1 for the goat and 7 down for the goat. So complete it in order. Don't skimp out on account of now they can mix blood. You can sort of piggyback on each other. No, do each step for itself properly. So up until now, we were talking about in these 2 cases where the blood got mixed into the other blood. What about if the blood didn't get mixed into each other, but rather he's no longer sure which one is which? He has 2 basins out there on 2 stands, and he's confused. He's like, is that one the bull's blood, or is this one the bull's blood? Because he's up to spritzing the bull's blood, and I'm not sure which one it is. And he asks the deputy or whoever else is there, peeking in from the doorway, and nobody. What?
They're all fish though.
And they're like, I couldn't see from here. Yeah, so nobody knows. Okay, so he's not sure which one is which. And this arvoloi kaisos bekaisos. The cups themselves, these vessels themselves, became confused to him, mixed up in each other. Now, the Bachaveh points out, what the Gemara said earlier, there's a lot more bull's blood. There's a lot, the color is different. He's just not so aware. I mean, he's weak, he hasn't slept, he hasn't eaten, and he's just simply not sure which is which. So what he's going to have to do, he's going to do 3 sets of spritzes. And this way, he'll pick up one and say, if this is the bull's blood, I'm spritzing the bull's blood now. And then I'm going to take the next one, which is the goat's blood. And I'm going to come back and spritz the bull's blood a 3rd time as a meaningless spritz. However, if this is the goat's blood, I'm going to spritz it now, but it's going to be meaningless because the goat's blood can't be spritzed before the bull. So I'm going to put that down, take the next one, which turns out to be the bull's blood, spritz that, and that's going to count. And then I'm going to come back and spritz this, and this will count as the goat's blood after the bull. In other words, he'll do 3 spritzes instead of this one. And then that one, he's going to do this one, that one, and back to this one. So this way, if this is the bull's blood, it was before the goat. And if this is the goat's blood, well, I did the goat before the bull, so that won't count. So I have to come back and do it again, and that will count. So either way, he'll get the correct order, and there will be one superfluous extra spritzing, which will not count. Miktsas damim nisarv'lo, miktsas damim lo nisarv'lo. What happens if part of the blood got mixed in and part didn't? So that could either happen where the 2 basins spilt into a 3rd basin, and so I have some of each separate, and some in a basin. Or what can happen is that he spritz the bull's blood, and as he's spritzing the remainder of as he's spritzing some of the goat blood, some of it spritzed, some of the bull blood spritzed into the goat blood. So now it has a mixture with some remainder of it left in there. So one is completely mixed up, one is partially mixed up, and one not. Now, so just spritz from what's pure, what's not mixed up. What's the question? So here we come to the next step of the mitzvah. The Torah says afterwards that the remainder of the blood that was not spritzed and was not used on the mizbeach gets poured onto the Yisoid mizbeach, onto the base of the outer mizbeach that's in the courtyard. So it gets spritzed onto the base, it poured down the holes at the base of the mizbeach, the Yisoid. So you have to have remainder to pour down there. So what's left unadulterated, what's not mixed up, so that's for sure a valid leftovers that's going to get poured down there. But what about the part that was mixed, that you couldn't use right now? Because now it's a mixture of goat and bull's blood, and I have a proper clean goat's blood. So I'm spritzing only from the proper blood. That means that the mixture, it doesn't count. That mixture that cannot be used, is that considered leftovers? That therefore gets the proper leftovers that gets poured out on the base of the mizbeach, or does it not count as leftovers? Rather, it counts as invalidated blood, and it gets tossed into the drain. Basically, the Beis HaMikdash, in order to drain out all the blood and all the leftovers, they had a stream running through the Azara, the courtyard, and that would wash out, and they would squeegee everything into there, and so this gets poured into there as well, and that's this question. This avalei mixas damim, this avalei mixas damim lo this avalei. Part of the blood got mixed in, and part didn't. Pshita. So what's obvious? Ki yoyev mevadoyin. When he's going to spritz on the curtain, he's going to spritz from the non-mixed blood. Miu hanach shirai. However, the leftovers that are in that bowl of the mixed bloods, hanach shirai, is that going to count as proper kosher leftovers? And therefore gets poured down the drain at the base of the outer mizbeach, of the mizbeach ha'olah, which is in the courtyard. Or do we say they are invalidated? And therefore goes into the stream. So Rava now says, well, we actually have a discussion about this. We have a machlokas. And what happens if you don't use one of the basins of blood? So somebody brings a carbon, okay? You have a sin offering. You have a carbon, and so he brings the carbon, and he has to receive the blood in a basin. He received the blood in a basin, but it was getting too heavy and too full. So he puts that down, gets another basin quickly, and he now received the blood in 2 vessels, 3 vessels, 4 vessels. Now the halacha is you have to spritz on the 4 corners of the mizbeach. So great. So he takes 1 vessel and he spritzes on 1 corner, and the other vessel on the other corner, or 2 corners, 3 corners, 4 corners. You can have each vessel, and then all of it's leftovers. But what if he actually only used 1 of the vessels to spritz on the 4 corners, and the leftovers, the other vessel or vessels were never used? So does this 1 vessel that he spritzed from make the rest of the blood proper shirayim, leftovers, which go down on the basin of the mizbeach into the drain? Or do we say, no, that invalidated it because you chose not to use it, so you invalidated it? That's the question. Does a separate vessel, the blood in a separate vessel, become invalidated, or does it become leftovers like the one that's in this bowl? So Rav Papa says, do we compare, is it the same? Like over there, and say, just like over there in a separate vessel becomes invalidated, so to here becomes invalidated. And if over there it counts as shirayim, here it counts as shirayim, or no? I could say, afilu amar Papa. Rav Papa said, afilu amanda amar. Even according to the opinion that said, that when he received the blood in multiple vessels, in multiple cases, nevertheless, the leftover in the other vessels counts as proper leftovers and it's kosher. Over here it won't count. You know why it counts as kosher leftovers? Because he could have used the other vessels too. They were all kosher blood. And so he could use on 1 corner and then the next vessel on the other corner, and he didn't. He used only 1 because that was more efficient or easier, whatever it is. But it's kosher blood in the other vessels, so therefore that one opinion holds that it's going to be counted as leftovers and can go onto the base. But in our scenario, where the bloods got mixed up and really you can't use it, so really it is already invalidated. So perhaps maybe over there it doesn't count as leftovers, and so even according to the opinion that says that over there it's leftovers and the blood. All the vessels of blood can be poured down the drain at the base, at the Yesod Mizbeach, at the base of the Mizbeach. That's because it's all valid and it counts as shirayim. Here, this second basin, which has the mixture of bull and goat blood, is not going to count as valid, and therefore it goes into the drain of the stream to be washed away. Amalei Rav Huna b'Rei Rishul Rav Papa. So Rav Huna, the son of Rabbi Shua, said to Rav Papa, Adarabba, to the contrary, even according to the opinion that says that over there, where you had in 4 different vessels, and you collected the blood in different vessels, and you only used 1, and therefore the others are invalidated, there you actively invalidated the rest of them, because you chose only to use 1 vessel. Meaning you said to the other 3 vessels, I'm not using you. You're not valid. So you've actively pushed them aside. Therefore, they are invalid. But over here, it wasn't that you actively invalidated. It got mixed up, so you can't really separate it, so you didn't have a choice. That's why you couldn't use it. Maybe that's still valid leftovers. The Tanya, as we learned. Lamala, so above, which is by a atonement of a chatas, a sin offering for a nasi, for the leader that made a mistake, and he brings a goat as his atonement. So there it says And its blood, he will pour, which is the leftover blood, he will pour at the base of the Mizbeach. But it doesn't say all the blood. It says it's blood, even some of it. However, after that, where it's talking about the individual sin offering that he brings, there it says, all its blood, all the leftover blood needs to be poured down the base. So we say, so the first opinion said, how do I know that if he received the sin offering blood in different vessels and he spritzed from each one on one of the corners, that it all goes down the drain? Because it says all its blood gets poured down. Perhaps that's also true if I spritz only from one of the vessels and the other three vessels I didn't use at all. No, therefore it says it's blood, only some of it's blood. Some of it is going to be invalidated. So the first opinion says that since you didn't use it, it becomes invalidated. And this is what we said. And to this, and we saw that Rav Huna bar Yeshua said the reason is because you actively invalidated it. And Rav Papa said, no, it's just because it's leftovers that you didn't use. Hu nishpach liyasayid, only the part that you spritzed from gets poured down the drain, the base of the Mizbeach. The other three vessels that you received the blood in but didn't use it for the Mizbeach, that didn't use it to spritz on the Mizbeach, so it's not leftovers because you didn't use any of it. Leftovers means you used some, and this is not used, so it's considered dichui, it's considered pushed away, you rejected it, and as a rejected blood, it's invalid. You have to pour it down the stream to wash away, and you can't pour it at the base of the Mizbeach. However, Rabbi Tzvi, the son of Rabbi Shimon, he says, no, in both of these cases, you pour it on the base. How do I know that even if I receive the blood in 4 separate vessels, but you only used one of the vessels, from one of the vessels you put all the 4 spritzes on the Mizbeach. So nevertheless, the rest also count as leftovers because it's all valid. So it all counts as leftovers, and you spritz from one vessel you spritz on the Mizbeach, and that makes the rest considered leftovers, and you pour it all down at the base of the Mizbeach. As the Torah says, all its blood should be poured down the drain. And then, so what is the first? Why is it different by the nasi, by the prince, that it doesn't say all its blood should be poured down the drain? It says its blood. It says its blood. And what it means to minimize is that only what's in the vessel has to be poured down. But whatever remains on the animal, that's draining from the neck, but it's not actually what came out of the veins with the heart pulsing. That's not included. So only the blood that's in the basin gets poured down the drain. But all of that's going to get poured down the drain. So now we have this machlokas there in regards to the leftovers in separate vessels, where Rabbi Tzvi Rabbi Shimon said it all counts as leftovers. It all goes onto the basin and onto the base of the Mizbeach, onto the Yisod. And the Tanakama said no. That's considered separate and not leftovers that goes on the base. And Rav Papa said everybody would agree over here it's no good. And Rav Huna bar Yeshua said over here everybody would agree it is good. And so we have 2 opinions as to in our case where some of the blood got left over and he used whatever was proper to spritz. Does the mixed blood count as leftovers or not? All right, let's begin the next Gemara quickly. The Mishnah then said, "Ira damapar ladam l'terech damasai." After he came out, so he spritzed inside the Holy of Holies of the bull blood, and then he went in and he spritzed of the goat blood. And then he came out and he spritzed of the bull blood against the curtain or towards the curtain. And then he came out and he spritzed of the goat blood against the curtain. Now the next step is he has to take of this blood and bring it to the golden altar, the Mizbeach Hazav, which is in the center of the room of the Beis HaMikdash of the Kodesh. And over there he's going to spritz 4 times on the 4 corners. Actually rubs it, we'll see, he rubs it on each corner. And that Mizbeach was pretty small, and he could lean over and reach from one side, all 4 corners. He's going to spritz there. The question is, however, does he do it separately for the bull and the goat, or he mixes the bull and goat blood together first, and then he uses that mixture to sprinkle on the Mizbeach? So our Mishnah said he would then mix the bloods and take it to the Mizbeach, which tells you that he mixed it first. So Tanan, Commander Amar, so we have a Mishnah like the opinion that says, Ma'arvin lekaranos, that before he goes to the corners of the Mizbeach, he would mix the blood and then take it to the corners. The Itmar, as it was said, Rabbi Yashia and Rabbi Yonason, that Rabbi Yashia and Rabbi Yonason, who were of the last of the Tanaim, they said, Chad Amar Ma'arvin, Chad Amar Ein Ma'arvin. One says you mix it and then you spritz it on the altar on the Mizbeach, and one says that you don't mix them. And tomorrow we'll see, the Gemara is going to try and prove that it's Rabbi Yashia who says that you mix them, and Rabbi Yonason is the one that says you don't mix it, based on another conversation in regards to what count when the Torah mentions multiple things together, whether they count as one or not.